Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Godzilla, Planet of the Monsters. I think forever I have wanted there to be an animated Godzilla movie. There's been animated Godzilla TV series, but this is the first time that there is a Godzilla animated movie, and although it's not traditionally animated, it's mainly done CG animated, which is, I guess, fine. It's still kind of a unique and big feat, and it's an insanely conceptual Godzilla movie as well. Probably more conceptual than most Godzilla movies I can think of, which I think their main concept is mainly Godzilla fights this guy or this other thing. It's pretty much the concepts. Maybe Destroy All Monsters is one. But anyway, this is actually the 32nd Godzilla film ever made. It is the 30th Godzilla film made by Toho, or Japanese Godzilla films, and it is the first animated one, which is pretty amazing. When I read the description of this film, because I knew there was going to be an animated Godzilla movie, it's going to be on Netflix, which I didn't see this in theaters, in case you're wondering. I'm American. I don't think it played in theaters here. Maybe it did and I didn't look hard enough. But when I heard the concept of this, which is basically that after Earth has been taken over by Godzilla for 20,000 years, a bunch of humans are going to try to finally take him down and take back Earth. And that was enough of a concept for me. I was like, hey, dystopian world ruled by Godzilla for 20,000 years. That sounds awesome right there. Why didn't you stop with that? And apparently they did not. And they went all in on explaining a lot of backstory. And I think, Godzilla movies have this thing where you saw it for Godzilla. That's why they usually go Godzilla, other title, or versus someone less famous, like Mothra. We know it's true. It's who you want to see. It's who you wait the whole movie for, sometimes far too long in certain recent cases. In this, you're getting all this info about these people on a spaceship who, so this is the other thing, is this concept goes way too conceptual. It's like way too much. There's way too much of this nonsense bullshit that it almost becomes like white noise to a certain degree. I was like, I get there's the guy with the black hair, that he's like kind of the hero of this thing, but there's just like so many people in this. It was honestly hard to tell them apart, mainly because the character designs, frankly, were not distinctive enough, and it would have been cooler in a more traditional animated thing. I don't really like that animation style. I don't think it honestly works very well, although it made Godzilla look amazing and awesome and horrifying and all the best things. It's probably one of the more favorite recent Godzilla character designs, including Shin Godzilla, or whatever we'll call that one, and the American Godzilla, which will always be lesser because America shouldn't really be making Godzilla movies, if you ask me. But anyway, the thing with this movie is you start off and they set up like, oh, Godzilla attacked and took over the world, and that's why we've been in space for 20 years, but because of space travel, it's like 20,000 years on Earth or something. They may have gotten into that and I forgot, but they got into that somehow. That's okay. All right, I'm cool with that. That's kind of an interesting little twist on it, and sure, you probably wouldn't want to live on Earth since Godzilla controls it, because I'm sure there's not healthcare or something. So they're flying around trying to find another hospitable planet, but have decided to come back and finally destroy Godzilla because they suddenly find a document after 20 years, because I guess they were lazy or one comes up or something, and they're gonna go back, and that's okay. All right, cool, still with you on that. But then you find out, well, it wasn't Godzilla who first come. There are other kaiju who, by the way, do not really come back at all in this movie. Why bring that up? Just because they do want to make a trilogy of these things so that they can introduce other monsters, and that they tried to make a Mecha Godzilla and that failed, and you're like, okay guys, but this doesn't really work for the movie you're watching. Like, it's kind of doing that thing where oftentimes where you build a franchise, you're like, there's going to be 7 of these. And I guess, frankly, Godzilla, if you're going to make a trilogy of animated films of any character, or IP as we call it nowadays, I think Godzilla, it sort of makes sense. It's a proven property. Like, I will probably see every new Godzilla movie that comes out, and I know there are a lot of people who will. And so you could say, hey, we're going to do a trilogy, and even if I object, I go, I object, but I will see them all. And they're like, haha, fuck you. So I get it. It's like a proven property, and you could totally make a franchise out of it. The audience is there, so it makes sense. But I think the opening has too many things in it that are clearly there to set up other movies that don't really work within this movie. There's also 2 aliens who came to Earth to hopefully take care of their kaiju problem. One, the Ixif and then the Blizludo or whatever. By the way, I saw this subbed. I did not watch the dub, which is available, which I didn't realize there was a dub because I'm that pretentious. And I guess they helped when Godzilla was destroying stuff, I assume. I actually don't know how they just like randomly made a spaceship. They spent all this time establishing all this other crap. They should have like gone on that. But they established these other aliens that are also involved who are living on the ship with the humans. Two different sets of aliens. One who's more was going to help them destroy Godzilla. The other who had some dumb religion or something, which they bring up occasionally. That sort of stuff is like, this concept is great, but like, calm the fuck down. It sort of works into it and the dynamics of it, but I don't think it was like necessary, because like ultimately, like whatever's going on in that spaceship, that's neat. That's cool that you guys like went way too far, because most of the time it's like, oh no, this cameraman is stuck where Godzilla is, and you're like, oh neat, where's Godzilla though? And at least this time they're like, hey, what if we made all this political intrigue and shit around the people around Godzilla? And it's like, sorta, do we want that? Honestly, I wanted to see Godzilla, man. I sort of care about it, but it's like, I don't think this was maybe politically as interesting as Shin Godzilla, which was trying to say something and honestly do a different take on Godzilla. And clearly in our current Godzilla films, between the 2014 Godzilla film, Shin Godzilla, and this, obviously filmmakers want to do new things with Godzilla. They just don't want to make kind of a specifically like almost genre kaiju kind of Godzilla movie anymore. They want to do different things with it, which gets a little boring, to be honest. I would just actually like a just decent Godzilla movie. I think this movie sort of is probably in some places the better of the three, which are all being drastically different, one being American, the other being more of a Toho man in suit sort of thing, and this one being animated. And the fight with Godzilla is actually really, really good, and I really enjoyed that, and it's probably my favorite of those three in certain cases. Well, I think the end of the American Godzilla is amazing, but sifting through all that crap is another story. But I think in this, the parts with Godzilla are actually really cool, and it has like kind of like a dogfight kind of situation with Godzilla, which I think is really neat. Sort of reminds you of what happened in the original King Kong. People keep saying it has more of a video game vibe and an anime vibe in certain places. Ultimately, this film just like gets hindered down by that stuff, because I think in Shin Godzilla it was interesting enough to be a lot more watchable, and it understood you had to do things with Godzilla throughout it. There's like 45 minutes to an hour before they get to Earth, and we even hear Godzilla really. I mean, there's like the intro, which is ridiculous in its length, which is after another intro to establish this thing where like all the old people die and stuff. With all that stuff, it kind of numbs you to the fact that you're like, I wanted to see my dystopian Godzilla movie, and I'm watching these people complain on a spaceship, and I just like don't think that worked as well. I think they should have had stuff, you know, with Godzilla throughout it. Flow wise, I just was sort of bored by the point they get to Earth, where I was like, alright, I guess we'll find Godzilla eventually. And then they get attacked by a few like weird creatures and eventually get attacked by Godzilla, but it just takes too long. I understand there's so much concept you could just like dive in and get really into it, I think, but I just was not one of those people. I didn't really love the character design and the animation and a lot of the acting, so maybe that's why maybe I should have watched a dub. I think it's like an interesting idea, but it's also, you know, their whole setting it up to be a trilogy thing honestly annoys me more, because it doesn't adhere to the rule that, you know, you make a good movie and those three good movies or movies that are whole complete things become, you know, one piece. And it did feel like they're kind of leaving it open. I think the next one comes out next year or something, and I'm curious. I think that could be a cool idea. If they're going to do it again, it could just use more action and less setup of all these people that like no one really cares about. Like nobody cares about no one's ever going to care about the humans in a Godzilla movie, other than like the first Godzilla and maybe like the little ladies that hang out with Mothra and stuff. Like it's just not anything people are really interested in, and you can do things with it like the 2014 Godzilla did, and like kind of making their plotline more of a disaster movie, and you can can play around with that. But ultimately, what are we here for? And all these films seem to play with the idea of like, well, what can we really do with this? What dramatics can we do with these things? At this point, having seen 3 different Godzilla films done from 3 different perspectives to do 3 different things to free up this franchise, just show me Godzilla. Just show me stuff that's blowing up. I honestly would like a Godzilla movie from the perspective of Godzilla. Don't know why that hasn't happened. I guess the waiting is part of these kaiju films, and it's fine, I guess. But there's way better Godzilla films that make you wait that I love. And then in Godzilla Planet of the Monsters, I was so ready to like this movie, and it just never dragged me in. There was just not enough. Like Godzilla films, I think, Shin Godzilla was probably one of the better, more intelligent kind of Godzilla films I've seen in a very long time. But this is the movie I'm watching for explodey things, and it is interesting, the ideas and the things that humanity would have to face under this kind of thing, and they do get theoretically science fiction-y in this, which is sort of interesting. But I think that they ultimately needed to understand kind of what this movie was, and I think it maybe thought it was Shin Godzilla in terms of intelligence, but it's honestly, the animated Godzilla movie. There'd never been an animated Godzilla movie before, and they kind of just thought about making this a movie and not, the possibilities of animation with Godzilla, which I think is what excited me about the idea of an animated Godzilla movie for all this time. But I don't think this really does that. It just is kind of its own weird story. I'm glad Toho apparently let the directors of this film kind of do what they wanted and so forth, and I think there's certain elements of this that I was sort of in on, but I think the aliens thing is like way too far. Bringing up all this stuff doesn't work. I mean, the Mechagodzilla thing, you could have just we attempted something, and you don't need to get into it that much. It's just like they'd waste time on these things. It's like, okay, I get you want that to come back in another movie, but I think that's mostly just sort of like jerking off, It's like, I get it, you're gonna get 3 movies, just like, make sure this one works, and kind of ending towards when the film like really gets into it. It felt like kind of the 2014 Godzilla as you get more into it towards the end and aren't as into it at the beginning, and then it probably won't hold up on repeat viewings. Like, I honestly can't imagine watching this again. Of the 3, I think Shin Godzilla works probably best as a movie, but I think like the 2014 Godzilla, this has a really great action sequence. It's just sifting through all the bullshit to get to those action sequences is honestly really not as worth it as it probably should be, considering the fact that this is sort of an unprecedented thing, much like the 2014 thing. There's not many times like America's made a Godzilla movie, and you'd think you'd maybe like step it up a little or do something with that, or do something with a character who represents so much to Japan about America. And in this, Japan and animation and Godzilla, it feels like a perfect fit. Why aren't you doing something exciting and amazing with this? And instead I think this is a better, honestly, I think this is a better attempt than the 2014 Godzilla, because it is so ambitious. That's the one thing about Godzilla Planet of the Monsters. You can't deny that it is an insanely ambitious movie. Like, no one has ever attempted a lot of this stuff with a Godzilla film, and I don't think you could make this in live action unless it costs like $300 million or something like that. So I applaud them for their ambitiousness, but like when I was watching it, when I was like right before Godzilla and before they went back to Earth, and I was getting super bored, I stopped caring about whether they're ambitious or not. And this movie kind of get too in love with being so outwardly crazy conceptual. It kind of like dulled me to that. And I shouldn't be dulled and bored by a Godzilla movie. I should be excited and thrilled and brought in and thinking about the possibilities of having this giant kaiju destroy and stomp on a bunch of stuff, and the political ramifications of that, and the feelings and all those things. And I don't think this film did that, but it was trying to do something different, and I think that's the thing with this and Shin Godzilla. They're trying to do something different. They're trying to expand the genre, and I think it certainly did, but it didn't do it in a way that made me as excited. It was just kind of like, oh hey, this happened, so I guess I'm just excited of the idea of it, and it kind of just doesn't improve from the idea of hearing about it to actually seeing it. It's just hearing about the idea. It sounds really great. An animated Godzilla film that has this cool concept, a really conceptual Godzilla film, that sounds like something a lot of people would like. But then when you actually see the movie, when you see what they did with the idea, it just doesn't inspire me as much. It doesn't make me get as excited. This went from being, a movie I really wanted to see and was excited by, to actually seeing the movie and going like, That dogfight with Godzilla was cool, but I don't really think I want to see it again. And I'm like, I guess I'll see part 2 just because I'm here. And so I guess if that's the kind of movie you're interested in, of kind of, you know, maybe sure I'll do this again, is the amount of enthusiasm you want from a Godzilla movie, then maybe Godzilla Planet of the Monsters is the Godzilla movie for you. So if you have seen Godzilla Planet of the Monsters and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.